Thank you, brother. That's just a part of our Ministry of Arts and Culture, Sister Viola, and the product of her work of her father. And I thank our Ministry of Education and our Saturday school, but the innate ability that Sister Queen Asia Muhammad has at 5 years of age. Praise be to Allah. Well, brothers and sisters, let us move forward with the word of God this morning. We want to present the one, the only. There's only one, Brother Akbar. Might be a lot named with that name in the world, but there's only one that we know, Abdul Akbar Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. And I want to say this, Brother Akbar, when you spoke on the tsunami prayer line in the time of the Laylat al-Qadar, the Night of Power, the last time when the minister came on, and you gave the history of what the Minister Farrakhan did in New York City with the ministry class and where all of those individuals are today in the world. You shared something I knew of the class, but that particular history just re-enlightened us on the depth and the breadth of the man, Minister Farrakhan, who walked in this city, labored in this city, and now today sits in the seat of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he's leading us to freedom, justice, and equality. And we can't keep staying amongst our enemy. I'm going to say this to you and bring Brother Akbar. Don't forget what happened on Thursday. They used to say 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. Well, 15 minutes and the tornado was on in New York City. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has warned us over and over again that Allah is going to keep sending one exclamation point after another. 15 minutes between Park Slope, Brooklyn, Forest Hills, Queens, and Staten Island. A bow wind struck through, 15 minutes and destruction. Trees that have been there 90, 100 years pulled up from their roots, concrete and steel along with it. We pray for the woman who lost her life, but the minister says disaster and destruction does not know persons. It could happen to any one of us. We have to pray for that family, that Christian family in the Bronx that were on their way last night in Orange County and their wheel blew out. They were 14 or 15 and 7 of them have died, including the wonderful pastor and his beloved wife. See, so we can't take for granted life. We must be precious, but we have to know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Master Farad Muhammad would destroy nations for us to be free. Last night, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke in Rockville, Illinois. You have to hear that message because he's making the case for separation. And if you don't believe it, you keep watching how God tears up the country. Everything is going to be separated anyway, so we might as well get ready to go for ourselves. Let's receive a message today on the burning of the Quran and the attack on Islam by our student minister, Abdul Akbar Muhammad. Let's give him a New York well-deserved round of applause. This is his home. Assalamu alaikum.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, I want to thank Allah for blessing me to be here this morning. It's still morning. We have a few minutes. And as always, I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for an opportunity that he gives us to help him in the work that I believe God has placed on his shoulder. I want to thank Brother Minister Hafiz and thank the staff for allowing me to come and speak here today. And it's always special when I come to New York. It's my home. And as I tell people, Brother asked me the other night, sitting next to me, he said, "Brother, do you miss New York?" I said, "When you leave New York, everything else is camping out." And but it's a city that's culturally rich. It's a city that has a history of struggle. And you know, as a brother was driving me, where's Brother Howard? Is Brother Howard here? Brother Howard, the brother from Jersey who was driving me, and I was pointing out, you know, where I lived in the South Bronx and how I walked across the 145th Street Bridge and went to Colonial Park, and when I worked in Central Harlem from 110th to 132nd Street, and pointing out to the restaurant 22 West, we used to call it, right? And as he was saying, he said, "Akbar, you need to put this on film." And I was telling him what happened here and there. But when you grow up with a thing, you don't think about it. But when you get to my age, you begin to think about it and reflect. but it's a powerful city. It's made an impact on the black struggle throughout the world, no doubt about it. From the Renaissance period, the early migrants who came to New York. Minister Farrakhan mentioned at the press conference about the graves. They're talking about Lower Manhattan, the graves of the black slaves that built Wall Street and all of that. So it's a city that is rich. And it's a city, I know when you reach a certain point, you want to move out to where there's a little grass and a little more trees, but there's a magnet that draws you back to this city. I was riding through Brooklyn the other night, and I was just looking at the energy of Brooklyn. It reminded me, is Brother Yusuf, Brother Joseph here from Haiti? Is he here? Well, he'll be coming shortly. I went to Haiti recently. My 140th country, Bob, was Haiti. And the brother said to me, he said, my subject is burning the Quran, but I'm going to take the scenic route to get there, okay? So bear with me, and I know we have to leave early. But this Quran issue has become a very divisive factor in the nation and the world. I got a letter from Brother Gaddafi's son, Saif, last week right before I did a TV show for overseas. And he was pleading with this pastor in Florida whose elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. You know he's a nut. But the only reason that he got public profile is because of the press. And the press had a political motive that most of us may have looked over. We were all in the hype of this Christian burning Holy Qurans, but the press profiled him. It would have been like somebody passing gas in a storm, and nobody would hear him, nobody would know it. But they made him the center of focus because there was a political objective. So let me take this scenic route because I'm back in New York and I'm home and I see some of my friends. I want to thank Bob Law, who is with me. Bob, we have to hear about this Freedom Party for a few minutes. And Viola, where's Viola at? She's here. And these are my friends, you know, I love them. And what I love about them is that they've been consistent in the struggle. And let me take all praise is due to Allah. Because, you know, I was with the minister and we were talking about people who become battle fatigued. And dealing with black folks, they can wear you out. Not only will they turn your hair crazy, they'll send you to the crazy house. You'll need some Thorazine and everything else, just dealing with Negroes. And but there are people who hang in there, and they stay, and they're consistent. And you know, and bear with me for a minute. I'm going to keep in mind I'm talking about the burning of Qurans today, but I just want to share this with you. Because at my age, you don't know when Allah will take you. I was at the funeral of Reverend Lucius Walker the other day, and Allah took him at 80 years old. But he was a progressive Christian minister. He didn't limit it to the church that he was in. He took it to the streets. And then he made it so that the church had an international thrust. He kept the people in his congregation. When he started in Milwaukee, one of the first black ministers over an all-white congregation. And so what he did with the white folks in that congregation, he took them to the hood. He took them to the ghetto. And he said, if you're going to be in a church, you got to get out in the street and work and show what a church can do. That's how he started. So I thank God for him. One of the things that will live in the memory of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren is his caravans to Cuba and those students. They were all in the audience. They stood up. These were students from East Harlem, black students who went to the medical school provided by Fidel Castro. So you don't know how long you'll be, so bear with me while I talk about this. Brother Yusuf, why don't you come up here, okay? This is a Haitian attorney who is also an FOI. And have a seat right over there. Thank you. He went to Haiti with me. So I'm going to take the scenic route. My subject is the burning of Qurans and the attack on Islam. And I'm going to try to make it the scenic route that I take because there's some things that I have to cover. And I want to start this morning. You know, most of the people in New York know that I love jazz. There was a brother named Maceo Haziz who played the piano. Anybody remember Maceo? Could you raise your hand? Okay, and what you have to do is share something about him with the brothers and sisters in the mosque and the young brothers who don't know him. Maceo came from Cleveland. He was a piano player. He accepted Islam. And his love of jazz was always there. So some kind of way, you know, people who love the music, we kind of vibe together. You know, I was walking somewhere one day and I had my linen hat on. And the brother said, "Do you like music?" I said, "Yeah, I like music." He said, "You look like you like music." And how many remember Donald 15, who used to play the saxophone? Anybody in the audience? Thank you. Okay, he's in California. Usman, you remember him. When Donald first came and sat in the mosque on 116th Street, and I was an assistant minister under Malcolm, Donald said that you stand like a trumpet player. And I don't play an instrument, but I love music. So Viola, I'm telling this story for you right now. Because Viola loves music. And the term, we got a TV show, and Viola, I got this from you. We're going to call it Straight Ahead. It's a one-on-one conversation about what's happening in the world. And when I suggested that name, Straight Ahead, they accepted it immediately. But let me just say this to you. I grew up in the South Bronx, first in Brooklyn. When I came at 2 years old from Virginia, my mother moved to Brooklyn, Bedford Avenue first, then we got an apartment on Tompkins. And then my aunt got a house out in Queens where there's grass at. And we all of us moved out to Jamaica. Those who know Jamaica, I lived on Glassboro Avenue, a few blocks from Shimer. And I went to Shimer. And this morning when I was listening to the radio, there was a brother that I grew up when my mother got a little more money, we moved to Hollis. No, we moved back to the Bronx first. I moved to the Patterson Projects. There's a brother here that grew up with me in the Patterson Project. That's where Albert and all of them and Melvin Combs, what's his name? Puffy's father, we grew up together in the Patterson Projects. And then we moved back to Queens. And when we moved back to Queens, this time we scaled it up a little. We moved to Hollis. And over there where Russell grew up in that area. And I met a brother named Richard West. And his father's name is Frank West. And Richard and I grew up together. Richard played piano. And Richard introduced me to his father, and I was blown. He played with Count Basie's band. This is for the Over the Hill gang, you know, so bear with me for a minute. The young brothers, you don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm not talking about the hip hop, but this is what we started our struggle with. And so he introduced me to his father, and I was elated, you know, I'm meeting Frank West. But Richard had a drug problem. And Richard began to, and he was a good piano player, and he began to shoot heroin because in the late 50s, in the early 60s, when I grew up, heroin was king in this city. 116th Street, where the mosque was, the brothers were like packs of wolves waiting for the man to bring dope. And we cleaned that corner up, but it took time. We didn't clean it up right away, but we cleaned that corner up. But the brothers didn't leave. They migrated to 115th in Lennix. And they gave up the corner of 116th, but they moved to the next block. And I'll never forget when I opened the bookstore in '69 and Richard came up there and I was trying to talk to him about drugs. And he said, you know, Larry, I just love getting high. I just do it. I love it. And he died. And in the music world, there are tunes that are made, such as God Bless the Child Who Has Its Own. And when drugs dominate your life, then the music that you sing or the music that you produce is centered around drugs. Art Blakey, Abdullah Bohannan, most of you didn't know that Art Blakey, the drummer, was a Muslim, okay? And, but he was a drug addict. And everybody that came through his school ended up using heroin for some reason or another. But when they made music, and Viola, this is why I thought about you this morning and your commitment, is that God bless the child that has its own. You know, was Billie Holiday really singing about God bless the child that got his own bag of heroin? Good Morning Heartaches, There I Go Again. You know, you're my joy and my pain. Was she singing about what heroin had did to her life? And she was expressing it in the song. And then even I interviewed on my show, and I want to make sure that I give out everybody a card. I have a radio show, and St. Louis, and it plays across the country on internet. But I interviewed Kenny Gamble last Monday. Beautiful interview with him. And the interview with Ilyasa Shabazz, I hope they have the tape ready today, the CD. I asked them to make up copies. An excellent interview. And not because Akbar did it, it was just a good interview. And I told Kenny Gamble that some people interview you, but they interview themselves. They talk too much. Jesse Jackson, when he had his TV show, he'd have a guest on there, but he really did all the talking and then asked the guest 1 or 2 questions. I love you, Jesse, but it's the truth, okay? Let me just finish this point. So, Kenny Gamble wrote a tune called Me and Mrs. Jones. Now, a lot of people, you know, in New York, we say he got a Jones. You remember that, right? This is for the Over the Hill gang. Bear with us, young brothers. I just want to give you some of this history, okay? But so when he made that tune, it was like Billy Paul was singing about a habit that he had, but Kenny gave me the origin of how he wrote the tune. And it was very creative. He used to see this man get out of his car, come into a restaurant, have coffee, and a woman would come, a young, beautiful woman, and they would sit there and drink coffee and talk. And when they left, she would get in her car, he would get in there, and this went on. And Kenny and Leon Huff, if you know that name, they used to look at it, and they went up to the studio, and they wrote Me and Mrs. Jones, and that tune became a hit throughout the world. They play it on strings and everything else. So there are creative juices to their music. He did Family Reunion, and he said that he was in the studio, and he had to use the restroom, and it was this brother in the lobby trying to see him. As everybody comes up there, they got a hit. And he said, Mr. Gamble, I just came from my family reunion. You got to hear this tune. And he went back in the studio, and in 20 minutes, he wrote Family Reunion that the OJs sung, and everybody played it at their reunion. Now, I'm saying this to say that there are creative juices that we had, and time is so short. When you get 70, you realize how time is short. When I went to that funeral, I thought about people who are activists, people who are not just satisfied. Brother Hafiz, you know, Allah has blessed you in this city. When you did Brother Bradford's funeral, I felt good about you as a brother and a minister and a representative of this cause. But people are not satisfied with just their group. You got to reach outside of it. I was talking to the believers in Brooklyn last night, even fishing. When I came up under Captain Shaw, we had to bring someone to the mosque. We didn't leave the mosque. All of those in here, you know, the Shaw would say, where's your guest? But we had to do it scientifically. That was then, but what do you do now? Do you just bring yourself? Do you Twitter somebody? Do you go on your Facebook and tell who's speaking, come out? How do you go after the people that you bring out? And it's not bringing them out because there's a spiritual void in their life. Most people go to church, they go to a mosque or a masjid, they got some kind of spiritual quality in their life, but it's the conscious movement that is most important. Right. That you bring them to a level of consciousness, and in that consciousness, they must grow. They must be committed to something. They must be on a road somewhere. I said on the Ramadan prayer line, if you don't know where you're going, any road will do. Just get on any road. You don't know where you're going. But if you grounded and you got something at the center of your life that you want to accomplish for your people, then you have a direction in your life, which is most important. We found it as young brothers, we found it in the nation because we couldn't fight the forces of the world, smoking dope, drinking wine, abusing our women, no jobs, hanging out in the street, got a pistol in our pocket, trying to be something that we were not. And so we found some guidance within what Malcolm at that time was teaching. And we didn't come to Malcolm say that I don't know God, I got a spiritual void in my life. We came because there was a struggle in the world for the black man to rectify himself after suffering at the hands of white folk. And we heard within this teaching something that would put us on a road that would get us involved in the struggle. Last week I was in Mississippi with Chokwe, and he had a big rally for the Scott sisters. And I said, I'm a New Yorker. I said, we didn't have a healthy respect for the civil rights movement. We thought that y'all were kneeling in, weighing in, begging white folks to accept you. We had no respect for that. We were New Yorkers, you know. And you know, New Yorkers are a little arrogant now. I mean, we're all arrogant. We think the world stops and starts at New York. When I was young, we thought it stopped and started at 116th Street. An adventure for us was to go to Brooklyn. That was long distance travel, okay? But we realize now it's a big world out there. But I told them we didn't have no respect for it. And at the rally, I said this to the people of Jackson, Mississippi. They had no respect for it. We thought that we needed to get guns and shoot white folks, but it was 3 books that I read that gave me a healthy respect for the civil rights struggle in the South. And they were by a white boy, Taylor Branch's book. And if you read them, his middle book got a large section about Islam and the Nation of Islam that most of us know nothing about. But he gave me a respect for what the people in the South were struggling with. How they went to jail in those water hoses, and how James Bevel, when the struggle got heated, he said, we got to get the youth, we got to get the children. That's how those children ended up in the street. But they sit down and they plan. They had differences with each other. And Bob and Viola, I'm saying this, I'm talking to both of you, because you had the tenacity, the strength to build coalitions even when you disagree. And one thing I can say about Viola, when she disagrees with you, she disagrees. She don't hide it. She don't sugarcoat it. She said, I don't agree with that, brother. And I'm not with that. I'm not with that proposition. But I don't take my marbles and go home and say later for Viola, I need to put her in a hijab. I'm going to make her a Muslim. But if I know that she's conscious and she wants to be involved in this struggle for our people, then I got to work with it, because all of your plans don't go through all the time. So what you have to be strong enough to say is that there's many roads to the liberation struggle. And what does the struggle mean for you? You know, I had a beautiful 30 days of Ramadan. And I was telling the believers, I don't know what city I was in, but how we fasted during December. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us that to us. And some brothers who say, I'm with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I fast through December, later for the Muslim world. See, it shows you, number one, you don't know what you're doing, and you don't want to grow. You want to stay stuck on stupid or stuck in yesterday under the guise that I'm holding on to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching. And when Minister Farrakhan called us from Dubai and told us to fast with the rest of the Muslim world, and then if you believe in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you could have went right to the Holy Quran and read what he did and understood it. It says that if you are on a journey or you are sick, you can fast like number days. We were on a journey 9,000 miles away from home, brought here in the holds of slave ships, you know. And were we sick? Absolutely sick. The white man made us sick in America, and that's why we crazy as hell right now. So therefore, so you could fast like number of days. So when the minister told us to fast with the Muslim world, it was a great fast. This was one of the best Ramadans I had. I didn't miss one day. And one thing that made me get up in the morning, even though sometimes that sleep guard can get you now. Alarm clock go off, you hit the alarm clock, knock it off the thing. I mean, it's rough in the morning. That sleep guard is very powerful. And so, but we got up in the morning, we made our prayers, we asked Allah to bless us, to guide us, we strengthened our bond with our family. And during Ramadan, the objective is to get closer to God. And in Ramadan, you know, you have forgiveness, mercy, and protection, the 3 different 10 days of period, the reading of your Quran. And in the religious community of the world, very few people read their holy book the way Muslims read theirs. It's a challenge. It looks thick, but it's really a thin book, 114 chapters. And every time you read it, and you got your problems, your personal challenges in the front of your head, God helps you with some ayat that you read 3 or 4 times, but at that time it means more to you than anything else. So I got the Quran burning, it's right there. It is the subject today. And I'm saying this to the Muslim community because Allah has given us an opportunity. We've become a beacon light and an institution after 80 years of the establishment of the Nation of Islam in America. And what you said, Brother Hafiz, and I just looked at my notes, what you said is that I was telling brothers and sisters that when Minister Farrakhan came to New York, now Malcolm had been killed, we were accused of killing him, you understand? And the 2 of our brothers that I know as sure as I'm standing on this rostrum were absolutely innocent. They went to jail for killing Malcolm. One of them died recently. Norman or Aziz is still living up in the Bronx. They were innocent. And as sure as I'm standing here, I know they were innocent. But when Talman Hayner, who got shot and caught on the set, when it went to trial, and they had him, and he fessed up. Then he said, tried to clear the two brothers. That DA said that, here, we got him. And our DA did a passionate closing that we got him, he's guilty. But he's trying to do the noble thing and clear his two brothers who are equally as guilty. They didn't catch them on the scene. And those brothers went to jail, lost their families, 25 years in jail for something they did not do. But it's symptomatic of what happens across this country. There's brothers in jail who were involved in the liberation struggle. They were not out just sticking up people trying to get a dope deal and so forth, but they were involved in the struggle. And many of them are innocent, didn't really do anything, but the enemy roped them in, and they've been in jail for 25 and 30 years. So the conscious movement, and I'm saying this to say that the conscious movement is important. Because most of us you didn't say, well, I read a Quran and I'm looking for God. I want to better serve Jesus and his prophets. You didn't come to this cause on that. You came to it because you had a hope of changing your lifestyle, improving yourself, doing something different, giving you strength as a man or a woman. And then you moved in and saw how God could be in the center of your life. But it started as a conscious movement. And when you lose that, and I watched it, some Muslims got so hung up, they wanted to be Salafis or Wahhabis, and they wanted to be Sufis, or they wanted to be this, and their religious expression became dominant in their life that they forgot the struggle of the masses of people. They didn't, even though dawah work, propagation is a part of Islam, dawah was out of the window. They brought themselves to a mosque, to a prayer, but they didn't bring anybody. And their lectures never stimulated a level of consciousness. That's why Minister Farrakhan is so loved across America among the masses of black people, because when he goes to preach to them, he preaches into the problems that we're challenged with. Yes, he weaves in and out of the Holy Quran or the Bible, but he's talking about problems that affect the black masses of this country, and so the nationalist community can identify with him. The Hebrew Israelite brothers, progressive white Americans can identify with him. The church ministers who are progressive ministers can identify with Minister Farrakhan, because he's bringing the people to a level of consciousness as he brings God to them, but consciousness is more important. What are you doing for your people today? What are you struggling to eliminate the problem of crack cocaine and drugs, now cocaine in our community, dysfunctional families, schools that are not teaching our children anything, jails that are full of our young men on drug charges and other madness that's going on. What are you doing to affect that kind of change? What are you doing to get scholarship for the young children who are struggling in high school? How are you trying to help these mothers? We got a problem right now with mothers in shelters with babies. How many shelters have you been with? How much food during Ramadan did you go there and feed the hungry and so forth? So there has to be a social consciousness if you're going to be into something. Otherwise, just build yourself a storefront church, get in there and either make your salat or call on Jesus and worry about whether you got 10 or 15 members in the congregation. So I was moved by Reverend Walker's funeral because he was a social activist. He didn't just stay in the church. They had to have his funeral at a bigger church because his church was probably too small. But he moved out of that church. He wasn't afraid to associate with Fidel Castro or Daniel Ortega or Hugo Chavez. He was not afraid to get involved with the problem of Haiti, where the Americans would send the Haitian boats back, but because of the political dynamics, they would let the boats full of the Cubans, and especially the white Cubans, come in to America to set up that little bastion down there that they have in Miami of the anti-Castro. He took caravans with buses. He even called me and asked, could we stay at the mosque in Dallas on their way across the Mexican border, taking goods to Cuba through Cancun, taking a flight over. He was a social activist. And in that funeral service at that church, you saw everybody from different specters of life. You saw black, white, Hispanics, and so forth, because he was involved in what was happening in the community. So let me move on to the burning of these Qurans. The burning of the Quran is very divisive. And it didn't come out of a vacuum. It wasn't that it happened. The media played a major role, as the media is playing a role right now and trying to get Barack Obama out of the White House. Now, I don't care what you think about him. He's not above criticism, but he's a black man in the White House. Now, I don't know if I was here before, and I mentioned to you, take a read of the book, The Bridge, by David Remnick.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's on the Stand Go It. It's about Barack Obama and the black community. And if you saw the news clips last night when he spoke at the Congressional Black Caucus and he walked across that stage, he's a black man. He didn't tighten his gait up and he walked like a black man. So, I mean, however you want to deal with him, he's not an angel. He didn't descend from heaven with a halo on and got all of the answers. But he's a black man in that White House. Excuse this expression, sisters and brothers. When he was campaigning, and show you how the media can do things, it was the BBC, the British News, that sent a reporter around America to get the temperature of Americans. They went to South Carolina, and there was a motorcycle gang of white boys. And they were interviewing them, and the white boy had a T-shirt on. It said the N-word. I'm gonna say it so I can get the impact. Nigga, please. It's a White House. And so now the press could have blown that up. The British press was showing the sentiment of white people in America. So this Tea Party and the few Negroes that joined the Tea Party, they look like a fly in buttermilk, okay? But at the core of the Tea Party, and if the name that they took, the Tea Party, that was the revolution against Britain. There's a revolution because the White House is occupied by a black man who is conscious. He's not dead. He may be controlled by a lot of forces around him, but he's a conscious black man. You say, well, Akbar, how do you know he's conscious? You couldn't sit in a church 19 years under Jeremiah Wright and not conscious. You could not. He said the book that had the greatest impact on him was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And all of you know him, that he evidently studied the films of Malcolm and he kept looking at him. He teaches like Malcolm. He uses his finger like Malcolm. And it should have been a signal to all of you when he said, you've been bamboozled. That's straight from Malcolm. So he's a black man in the White House and they want to get him out. So they're not interested in burning Qurans. To show a picture that Islam is from the devil and to do all of that, that's the media dividing America. Now, the Time magazine did a poll 3 weeks ago. Remember they had the crescent on the front of the Time magazine and a star? It was almost like our blackboard. And in the poll, they said that 24% of the American people believe that Barack Obama is a Muslim. How many, could you raise your hand if you were polled? How many in here were polled, that they came to you and asked you that question? Raise your hand, were you polled? I'm hunting for some black folks who were polled. Did you get a phone call? This is Time magazine. We're taking a poll whether you think that Barack Obama is a Muslim or not. No. Now, if you ask the question, as can somebody help me who follows Hollywood? Tony Curtis was married to, Bob, you old enough. Who was it? No. Tony Curtis's first wife. Lee what? Okay. And Tony Curtis, this you gotta be the Over the Hill gang now. Tony Curtis had a daughter.
Janet Lee.
Thank you. Janet Lee is Tony Curtis, and Deborah Carr was her name? Okay. She's an actress. Thank you, sister. She was on television the last couple of days, and they asked her this question. They said, you act so natural. You are such a natural actress. And she said, well, it's in my DNA. I just can't help it. Now let's translate that. Barack Obama's father, who was a Luo, there's two tribes in Kenya, the dominant tribes is Kikuyu, who Jomo Kenyatta was a Kikuyu when Kenya became independent in '63, and we lived through this period. I was in the mosque. It was an exciting period for it. Jomo Kenyatta was on the front of the Muhammad Speaks, you know, Uhuru, and Kenya, the Mau Maus, who the British took a movie, a film, and especially in the late 50s, when we used to go to the movie bar, remember they have the newsreels in between the two pictures? We saw two pictures at that time. You understand that we would go see the cowboy flicks, but in between they had a newsreel. And the newsreel pictured Kenya these bloodthirsty, oath-taking Mau-Maus who are killing white folks. And you sit there and then they take oaths and they're from the Kikuyu tribe. Now, we didn't even understand it was a liberation struggle going on. So these two tribes, let me fast forward this. These two tribes, the Kikuyu and the Luo, are the dominant tribes. Thank you. I'm gonna make this point. And so Barack Obama's grandfather, for some reason, had to go to, not his father's grandfather had to go to Tanzania. He went to Tanzania, he went to Zanzibar. He got converted to Islam, he brought it back, and within his group of Luos who live in the western part of Kenya, they became Muslims. And then Barack's father became a Muslim, and what happened was that independence was on the horizon. Some of you remember Tom Mboya. Tom Mboya was a Luo, he was killed. And there was this clash between the Kikuyu and the Luo, and so they had now independence was coming, but they didn't have the capacity to run a government. So they had to send young students, and I'm saying this to our young brothers, you gotta train for the future. And the older brothers, you gotta encourage them. You gotta push them, push the brothers and sisters, because there has to be continuity. You can't have a strong leader at the center, he leaves and the whole operation falls apart because you didn't encourage young people to keep going. So they had to send students away. The Kennedy family, now Kennedy is in office when all of this is going on. The Kennedy family saw that they were going to Moscow and they were going to Uganda because Milton Obote was the president who was a socialist, and they had Makerere University there. And so they wanted to get them to America, so the Kennedy family sponsored a plane. 100 students were put in that plane was Barack Obama's father. He was sent all the way out to Hawaii, and then a little young white girl from Kansas went to school in Hawaii, and they met, and there comes Barack Obama. But in his DNA, to make my point, as that actress said, in my DNA is acting, in his DNA is revolutionary struggle. His father was involved in it, and also Islam is in his DNA. So therefore, and Bob, you know, the people, you can criticize. You can say Barack ain't doing this and he ain't doing that, but he's a black man in the White House. What are we gonna get if he gets kicked out? This midterm election is important, but Negroes don't vote on midterm elections. I mean, we just don't do it. It's not important to us. But what Barack said last night, and he was trying to encourage those at the Black Caucus meeting that, you know, I'll lose both houses. Anything he puts on the table right now, they criticize. So this is a battle. The house is divided. The burning of the Qurans is a part of it. And this attack on Islam. I was in Washington this week, and I got an email. It said that there was going to be a hearing on Sharia. Sharia is law in Islam. And the hearing on Sharia was conducted by 3 Republican congressmen. I went there, the room was packed, the press was there, and they brought this book out, Sharia, The Threat to America. And when you get it, when you read it, the first part of it is how they dealt with the threat of communism. And how the McCarthy, remember all of the strugglers. If you read Trotsky's dissertation on black nationalism, okay, and I was young, and when I was reading all of that stuff, because we had the cipher between Mao and Moscow, China and the struggle, because they aided the struggle of the liberation movement. And it was tremendous, their aid. But what happened is that all of the conscious black people, including W.E.B. Du Bois, he suffered because they said that he was a Marxist, he was a communist, he was this and that. They took his passport right here in this city. And when he got that passport in '59 to poke his tongue at America, he went right to China. But they were locked into this struggle. So in the opening of this, they recount that the threat of communism, and they equate it now to Islam, which there's millions of Muslims in America. And they say that we are an internal threat, and they want to see how to deal with this. Now, this is coming out next month in a book. It comes out in October. And when you read it, it will blow your mind. The French have set it up right now when the French now deported the gypsies, Romas they call them. They're seeing how that goes because France has the largest Muslim population in Europe, and the next move is to get the Muslims out there and see Islam as a threat. Now I'm saying this because the seeds of Islam in your DNA, according to my sister, she worked right up at the Schaumburg, Sylvia Doof, servants of Allah, Muslims enslaved in America. And she talks in this book about the millions of Muslims that were brought here in slavery. So in your DNA, there's some Islam going on, okay? So, but you know, it was taken away from you. But it was like the brother I starred with, Richard West, he said, I just love shooting dope. But when he started shooting drugs, being that it was drugs in his family, it was like something he was looking for all of his life. So when you hear Islam, that's why I don't care how bad we treat you. I don't care what we do. You don't seem to hold on. It's in your system. You can't shake it. You can't say, I'm sick of them Muslims down at the mosque or the masjid. I'm sick of them. I'm going to go back to being a Christian, not you. You find something in between, you know. You may not be a practicing Muslim, but if I ask you, what's your real, I'm a Muslim. And you ain't prayed and been drinking wine, smoking a couple of joints, but you still a Muslim because there's something in your DNA that's holding you right there. Let me finish this. Politics is the main thing. This preacher, what's his name? Jones, Terry Jones. Now, why would he get worldwide publicity? Because the media wants that. They want to divide the country over the issue of a black man being in the White House. Barack's first move when he got in, he went to Turkey, delivered a speech. He said, America is not an enemy of Islam. It never has been and never will be. Then he goes to Cairo to try to resolve this problem of the Palestinians. In a book that's out now that I reviewed for this overseas TV show, it's called The Empire Has No Clothes. It's by an author named Dr. Ivan Elan. And in it, he talks about 700 plus US bases throughout the world. That America has become, it wants to be an empire now and control every country in the world as an empire. And that's what America is moving with. But the challenge for America to do it is the Islamic world, 1.6 billion people. So they got to deal with the Islamic world. And the way you deal with it is not attack it, you got to divide it. And it comes from Richard Pipes, the father of Daniel Pipes. Anybody in the audience know Daniel Pipes? Raise your hand if you know him. A fierce Islamic hater out of Philadelphia. Now his father was Richard Pipes. And his father is the one that, how do we dismantle the Soviet Union? How do we do it? If you keep attacking them from the outside, it welds them together. And being that they were not colonial powers and oppressed the people of the third world, they got an in with those people, and those people will rally around them. So Richard Pipes came up with, let's divide them from within. He came up with glasnost and perestroika and all of that, and open markets and so forth. And he divided the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union collapsed. Now it's the Russian Republic, and all of those states around it are independent, but those states around Russia, Uzbekistan, Kurdistan, Azerbaijan, all of them are Muslim countries. And so now America is looking at the same thing. The Muslims are in our way. And the Muslims are in our way because they got a spiritual base based on the revelation of the Quran 1400 years ago. You are a part of that world. Don't say, well, that's them Arabs and them Indians, Indo-Pakistanis and those Malaysians. You are Muslim. And there's certain aspects of the faith that you got to know. You can't make an excuse. I'm a nation of Islam. We don't have to know all of that. You're a Muslim. You have to know it. And if you think that your way is right and you're going to teach them something, then you got to know what they know in order to teach them. But if you don't know nothing, you can't teach them nothing. So their deal was, how do we deal with these Muslims? This meeting right here in Washington by these Republican congressmen is what they're thinking of how to deal with us. A man stood up, and I raised my hand first. That man would not call on me because I wanted to know, where are your scholars that you got for this? A man stood up. Two parts of it. A man stood up and asked him a question. Did you get Muslim scholars to help you with this book, with this document? And the man said, no, we got ex-Muslims, those who have denounced Islam, like Ayan Hershey Ali. She has, how many know that name? Anybody in the audience know that name? She's a Somalian Muslim woman. She got a book, the first book she wrote, I think is called Infidel. The second one is called Nomad. It's out on the market now. Go in Borders and sit down and just read the first section when she went to London when her father was dying. She's the one that got on television here 3 weeks ago and said not only should Muslims leave their country, they should leave their God back there. And she said Muslims should accept Christianity. And so the Yahudis have got her into America. Cy Newhouse at Random House gave her a couple of book deals. She's going to do a forum at the Washington Press Club on October the 25th, and they're advertising her Muslim activist, but she denounced Islam. So you explode them from within. You get the Muslim community, the largest group of Muslims in America are black Muslims. And I'm black Muslims of all walks, not just the Nation of Islam. Out of the 10 million Muslims in America, the largest percentage are black men and women who have accepted Islam. And so how do you divide that group? So you divide them from within. You get the brothers who are real Salafis. They've gone overseas, they basically studied in Saudi, and they follow the line of Abdul Wahhab. That's why you call them Wahhabis. And theirs is real strict, and everybody needs to be brought back to the Quran. Or you get them to follow the Tabligis. The Tablighi brothers started in India with Ilyas Muhammad, who really wanted them to go into the mosque and correct the behaviors of the Muslims, and they don't do any dawah work at all. They spend time splitting hairs over whether you got the right hadith, whether you stand in qiyam like this when you pray, or whether you keep your arms to the side, and what school of Muslim thought do you follow of the 4 great imams. So you spend time wrestling over that. Meanwhile, black people and our people are suffering and catching hell in the street. They don't want to be bothered with you. You know, they don't want to be bothered. They say, man, them Muslims are so confused and divided and fighting with one another. This is the plan of the enemy. The enemy is to divide you from within. I'm a better Muslim than you. I'm Nation of Islam. I wear my bow tie and sell final calls. I believe in Allah, Master Farrakhan Muhammad. You don't understand what I understand. I got supreme wisdom. See? And you start and you divide it from the other Muslims, you know, and they say we follow the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you know, and you become divided with one another. They say they did not become divided until knowledge came for them. And then as you started in this movement was the salvation of your people to bring you to a level of consciousness. Now your consciousness is all centered around what you know of your Islamic faith and who is the better. You divided with the 5%ers. The 5%ers got a problem with Akbar. I love you as brothers, but I'm not going to lie to you and make it something that it's not. I don't care how you slice that cake. I know the oranges. I know how you got started. I know your root. So I'm not going to try to make it something that it's not. You got to deal with it as it is. So then you got the Moorish Science brothers. They say, well, Noble Jew Ali was before Elijah Muhammad, and he went to Morocco, and he brought us back Islam, and here's his Quran. So in the prisons, they know how to work you real good. When you go in, you declare where you are, brothers or sisters. If you're a Sunni Muslim with Imam Muhammad, you go to prayer here. If you're this kind of Muslim, you go to prayer there. If you're a Shiite, you go to prayer there. They don't let you intermingle, especially in the state of New York, keeping you divided and dividing you from within. And as long as they can keep that going, we can never move as a people with what brought us to a level of consciousness. So the burning of the Quran and this fight against Islam, the demonstration on the 11th downtown, the numbers of people who came out who were for the building of the mosque was greater than the number of people who demonstrated against it. We got to realize, and I want to say this, Maceo Aziz introduced me because Maceo loved Arabic. I mean, Arabic, he said, took the place of him not playing jazz every week. But he loved Arabic. And he introduced me to Imam Abdul Rauf on 72nd Street. Imam Abdul Rauf is the father of Faisal Abdul Rauf. And if you get and we became good friends. My first Islamic learning and teaching about certain aspects of Islam in the Muslim world came from Abdul Rauf. If you look at his book, Bilal, he'll say that I wrote this book because a good friend of mine, Kareem Abdelaziz, he was talking about me, encouraged me to write a book on Bilal because when Imam Muhammad came in, he called us Bilalians. The Muslim world had a problem with that, but that's what he called us. So we were studying the life of Bilal. And it had good roots because it was talking about the call of the prayer. The last one to call the Muslim world back to prayer comes from a black man. Call them back to the right way. So this struggle downtown is more than building a mosque. It's number one, to make him compromise. Faisal Abdul Rauf is a good brother. He's a Sufi brother. And he's reached out. He's got more white Muslims down there probably than any mosque in this city. And because he's a Sufi, and if you know anything about Sufis, that's another subject for another time, they're reaching out to people. But look how they've drawn the battle line. They took a local building of a mosque 2 blocks from Ground Zero, and please don't use Ground Zero mosque. That's the white man's terminology, or the enemy's terminology, Ground Zero mosque. There's no such thing as a Ground Zero mosque. But look how he keeps repeating it, and then we start saying it. But it's become a national issue first. Now it's an international issue in every corner of the world. And the Muslims outside are telling Faisal Abdul Rauf, hold your position. Don't give up your position. And he's saying everything is on the table. And then you have somebody like a Donald Trump stepping in, I'll pay for it. You got people ready, just move the mosque. So when you capitulate to that, this is a part of the war against a force that America says will consume it or destroy it, and you cannot bow down to it. The important part, let me close this out. The important part is us not to be divided. And this is most important. If I can say anything as Akbar Muhammad, my experience and my work with Minister Farrakhan, we cannot be divided. Don't get into things. Sometimes people have their position and they want to bait you. As I told a group of imams in Florida, I said the Muslims in the Nation of Islam under Minister Farrakhan, they're anxious to learn aspects of the faith. But if you're arrogant and you want to go down and talk down on, oh brother, you don't know that position of prayer? That's qiyam. You need to be in sajda. Astaghfirullah. See, if you got that kind of attitude, these brothers and sisters will say later for you. And if you get too smart, they'll want to punch you in your mouth. See? So if they're willing to learn aspects of the faith that you may know, because you spent time while we were redeeming people out of the ghetto and going into the hood, you were spending time studying your hadith and your Quran and your Arabic while we were in the streets, in the trenches, battling for the lives of our people, and you were studying Islam. And now that we want to learn certain aspects of it, you're going to be arrogant? No, it don't work like that. Allah will not bless you. See, and you can tell the Muslim he walks the earth in humility. The most important thing is our unity. Let us not be divided. You got to be able to work with people. They don't agree. You got to learn Viola, what an internal contradiction is. Okay, you gotta be able to work that. Bob, we got to be able to disagree, but we don't call each other for 3 weeks. I disagree with Bob. I don't like his position. But what we got to say is that, can we adjust that? How can we work it together? How can we get the max out of it for our people who we are trying to help in this work? Now let me close, because I want to, Bob, and I got to hear from you. I thank you for coming out today. But Bob and Viola, I want to invite 3 people to the rostrum here so that they can say a word, because Bob, the political dynamic is important. See, we can't tell you from the rostrum, because we have a religious group, we have tax exempt status and this and that. We can't tell you who to vote for. But politics is everything. All politics are local. You know, people know that Rangel is 80 years old, but you know what they said? That he's got a history. I mean, I met Rangel at the Democratic Convention in Denver, and we were walking together. Now, I've known Charles Rangel for 40 years of my life. And we were walking together, and so he calls me Brother Larry. He said, Brother Larry, you've been a long time. You've been hanging in there a long time. And I told Rangel, I said that, you know, whenever we needed you, you were a politician, but you came to our aid. It took him a lot to get to that Million-Man March, because they were on him. They didn't want him. The New York Jews did not want him to speak, but he made a conscious decision that my people, even though they've supplied me with a lot of money in this, my people are more important, because that's what I came to serve. You can't go back to the history of him and Adam Clayton Powell and try to bring that up today, but the people of Harlem spoke clearly that these folks are on you, trying to break you and trying to destroy your legacy. And even though, you know, it's time to pass it on to a young brother, we're going to show them that we will not stand by and allow them to do it to you. So the people turned out. Politics is important. It's important for rules and regulation that govern your society. In Islam, we don't have the separation of this church and the state. That doesn't exist in Islam. Because if you go to each Muslim country, go to Egypt. Egypt is a secular society, so they say, but their constitution is based on the Holy Quran. Go to Libya, their constitution is based on the Holy Quran. There's aspects of it. So politics and who governs you is important. You can say, I don't vote, I don't get involved in that. Then you give your power over to somebody who don't give a damn about you, excuse the expression, and they don't report to you, they don't say nothing. So you got to be engaged. And there's nothing better than those who are organized, those who have a network, those who can turn people out to organize, to put a politician in and make that politician responsible. That's by way of introducing you, Bob Law, because you've been engaged in it for years. And God has blessed you, Bob. You look good for your age. He's my senior by just a couple of years, and he thinks that he got to tell me what to do. Boy, he said, respect me, Akbar, I'm your senior. But he's my brother, and what I love about him, he's clear in his analysis of things, and that's what we have to teach the young people, how to do critical thinking, how to analyze something, look at it, turn it over, and have think tanks to come up with the best solution. Bob, would you please come to the roster? Viola, could you please come up, Viola, come up. Come up, Minister, let's welcome Minister Bobby Law Muhammad.
Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, Viola, come on this side. You know, now here are two of my friends, longtime friends. We've traveled overseas together, we've struggled together, we've been in all kind of meetings. And I remember we were in a certain country and there was a brother who I was trying to get involved. You know, I'm always kind of build bridges. And Viola said, absolutely not. I cannot work with him, absolutely not. We won't, and he's a New Yorker, we won't call his name right now. And I loved her. I said, go ahead. And plus she came from Jamaica, Queens, out in the area that I grew up in. But I wanted to bring them up because Bob is working with the Freedom Party. And when I saw Charles Barron at the funeral, I said if I speak Sunday, I wanted Bob to be here to say a few words and have Viola here. So go right ahead, Brother Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you all hear me from here? And actually, Viola is the co-chair of the Freedom Party, and one of the people who is very much responsible for the leadership and the direction that we are going. Let me just say this, do this quickly. I really appreciate your inviting us to be here.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate there is a bond that I have with the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir.
They say it is because there's a Muslim in me. I say it is because they are the sanctified Muslims. But we really appreciate being invited. And even more than the invitation, we really appreciate the welcome that we get when we are here. We really appreciate that. Let me just tell you this very quickly, and part of the unique or special feature, significant ingredient of our relationship is that y'all know who I am. And I'm welcome among you. And y'all know that I'm the sanctified guy. And so you know that, as I've said to you on many, many times, Minister Hafiz, he's already laughing at me. You know how I come before you, and woe unto me if I don't tell you that I come in the name of Jesus. Just so you know who I am. Let me just tell you this really quickly. The Freedom Party. One of the reasons that there is a Freedom Party is because those of us who love freedom cannot rest. Those of us who love freedom, there's a Freedom Party because those of us who love freedom are still on the journey. Everything in this country, everything in this society, everything black in this society is being marginalized and moved aside. Black people are under a relentless attack. And in my church, we also believe that at one point, God will intervene and resolve everything. However, in the meantime, we have a responsibility to do God's work, which is to liberate oppressed people. In the meantime, and while it is true that the God is still on the throne, but he did not give you dominion over all things for you to be an innocent bystander watching history on the journey. He didn't give you dominion over all things so that you would be silent and passive, waiting for him to eventually intervene. In the meantime, there is a responsibility that we have. And so when we see our people being oppressed, when we see everything black being marginalized, see, the Freedom Party, people will talk about the importance of Barack Obama and the need to support Barack Obama. But the Freedom Party is the only political organization that is actually organizing black people to begin to push back against that white aggression, which does in fact defend and support Barack Obama. It is the Freedom Party that is mobilizing people. It is the only political organization that is actually organizing people to push back against this renewed racist aggression that is based on white supremacy.
That's right.
We understand that it is about white supremacy. They are appealing to white folk to oppose everything that Obama does because they are not really asking white people to examine what Obama does. He's a black man.
That's right.
And he's in the White House. And in an anthropological, did I say it right? In an anthropological sense, America is a tribe.
That's right.
And it is a white tribe. And it has a black leader of the white tribe. That causes white people to suffer cognitive dissonance. They can't handle that. That doesn't make sense. That t-shirt, I saw that clip and I saw that white boy with that t-shirt. He was talking to white people. So understand that none of this stuff, none of this dialogue, see, y'all be listening to Glenn Beck saying that I want to know what the enemy says. I want to be informed. I want the information. Like you're going to do something about it once you listen to it. He's not even talking to you. Those are white folk talking to each other. Our struggle is to get a strident black voice back on the radio.
That's right.
We don't have anybody talking to us. Freedom Party recognizes that black people are being marginalized. And so we have begun to organize a political and independent black and Latino-led political organization that will speak for the people who are currently voiceless. There's nobody speaking for you. And I know that some of you, some black folk, think that they are Democrats. They think they're Democrats because they are enrolled in the Democratic Party. Malcolm said once that I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican, and I got sense enough to know it. See, if you think you're a Democrat, you're a member of a party if that party speaks for you. You know good and well that the Democrats and the Republicans are not even trying to speak for you. And they couldn't care less what your concerns are. Freedom Party is the only party that gives you a voice. Freedom Party is the only party that is even interested in talking to you. See if Cuomo will come here. Invite Palladino. See if Palladino or Cuomo even want to talk to you. And we've been coming here even before there was a Freedom Party. You know that we love you. Now what we are saying to black folk, the Freedom Party exists. You know that we love you. Now we need black folk to begin to love us back. Harold Melvin was right. There ain't nothing like loving somebody when somebody loves you back. What will really lift your spirit is when somebody loves you back. Freedom Party, of course, has positions on issues. Freedom Party says, for instance, that there ought to be free transportation.
That's right.
For everybody. Freedom Party says there ought to be free tuition. When Ed Koch went to City College, it was free. As soon as the population shifted and became predominantly black and Latino, now there's tuition. Now there are textbooks that you can't even afford. You got to make a decision to pay your rent, buy groceries, or buy a textbook. Freedom Party says you have to stop taxing. See, do you listen to these white folk talk? And they say that they are opposed to increasing taxes. They are lying. They're not opposed to increasing taxes. They're opposed to increasing taxes on rich white folk, but they don't mind taxing you. See, they will cut every service that is being offered to you. That's taxing the poor. We've got a little poster with a little girl who's about 5 years old, and the little girl says that the politicians kiss me, and then they cut $200 million from the school budget. Charles Barron says, tax the billionaires 4.5% instead of the children. When they tell you that they are for cutting taxes, what they really mean is that they are for taxing your children, for taking services, closed libraries, closed schools. All of those things is how you continue to tax the poor and tax the working class. Freedom Party recognizes that. I can assure you, as you hear the conversations throughout this campaign, you won't hear anybody else but the Freedom Party talking like this. Freedom Party speaks for you. What we need for you to do is to become aggressive in supporting the initiatives of the Freedom Party. Here's what happened. The reason we're running for governor to get started is because the New York State law requires that in order to become a certified political party with ballot status, you have to qualify a gubernatorial candidate. And you've got to get 15,000 valid signatures. And you have to get them from throughout the entire state. You've got to get them from, like, was it 21 congressional districts?
Yes.
You've got to get them from 21 congressional districts. So our base may be New York City, but we can't go get the whole 15,000 from New York City. We have to get them from throughout the state. And you've got to get at least 100 signatures from each of those congressional districts. We got a minimum of 300 from each of those congressional districts, and in some of them we got 2,000 or 3,000. But we had to file 15,000 valid signatures. And so people were prepared to challenge us because we can't do that statewide. We don't have a statewide organization. We don't have the apparatus to go out and collect signatures all over the state. We filed 43,000 signatures. One white boy, what's his name? The councilman, Lou Fiddler, a white councilman. He said that if nobody challenges, he'll challenge us. And he said he's going to challenge us because blacks and Latinos should not be allowed to form a political organization. That's what he said. He said that blacks and Latinos don't have a right to do that because if they do it, it's race-based. And we can't have blacks and Latinos forming a political organization in this state. So he said, if nobody challenges them, I will. He said that 2 days before we filed. 2 days later, he found out that we had 43,000 signatures. He said, maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe if I challenge, I'm going to give them publicity, and that's all they really want. So he withdraws his challenge, and the Freedom Party is on the ballot in November. That was victory number one. Support the Freedom Party because the Freedom Party is a win-win-win situation. If we get 1 million votes, Charles Barron is governor. If we get 200,000 votes, we have the largest number of votes of any independent political organization, and we have immediate power and leverage and influence. And we're on the ballot. If we get 50,000 votes, we're on the ballot, which is what we want to do, is be on the ballot for the next 4 years, because watch what effect we have on the next mayoral election in New York City. It's win, win, win. We're either going to be governor We're either going to have enormous power and influence, or we're going to be on the ballot, which is what we wanted from the beginning. So if you support the Freedom Party, you can't lose.
Right.
You can't lose. All you can do is win. And if you vote, it'll be the first time in your life that you actually voted for something that made a difference, that you're actually building something. If you've been voting for Democrats and Republicans all of your life, you know good and well that they couldn't care less about your vote or your concerns. If you think there's a difference, when Pataki was governor, he's a Republican, right?
Right.
When Pataki was governor, then who was Spitzer? He was a Democrat, right? You don't have to answer this out loud, but what was the difference in your life when the Republican was in and the Democrat was in? How was your life any different? Could you actually tell when the Democrat took over from the Republican? Could you actually tell who was who? How were they different? You know good and well that when you vote the traditional party line, you already know you are wasting your vote. You know you're wasting your vote. You vote for the Freedom Party, you empower an independent black political organization. It'll be the first time in your life that you cast a vote here in this city that actually was to build something powerful for black people. People are worried about being Democrats. And people always ask us, how is it going to affect the Democratic Party? And then people come up and they say, Charles Barron, I got a problem. And what you going to do? How long have you been a Democrat? And you still have a problem? You coming and asking us what we going to do about your problem. You've been a Democrat 40 years and got the nerve to come up and admit, I still have a problem. And you want to know what we're going to do. We want to know, what are you still doing in that party that has left you in a situation where 40 years later you still have a problem? What are we going to do? Lord help us. Support the Freedom Party. It helps us to build an alternative. It helps to create a power base for black people, not only in this city, but throughout the state. And everybody in the country watches New York City. If we do this, then there will be a Freedom Party all over the country just like that. We need an independent black political organization. Freedom Party is a unique opportunity to do that. And so we have come to make you aware of the Freedom Party. And see, people who are worried about their position in the Democratic Party, look, let me just stop here. Look at this. You don't want to upset the Democratic Party. Schools are closed. Hospitals are closed, right up under your Democratic nose. Schools don't teach, right up under your Democratic nose. Vigilante police up and down the street, right up under your Democratic nose. How dare you be concerned about what effect this is going to have on the Democratic Party? See, we've been assuring people that you don't have to worry. You can keep your membership in the Democratic Party and still vote for us. I'm not trying to assure you nothing. You got some nerve worrying about the Democratic Party. All of the trouble that we are in, right up under your Democratic nose, and you concerned about how is this going to affect the Democratic Party while you still pretend that you're a Democrat. Because you registered as a Democrat and the Democrats dismiss you on a regular basis, you still running around here talking about, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. Malcolm is right. You have been bamboozled. We appreciate you asking us to inviting us to be here. This is my dearest friend. Everybody knows this is my dearest friend. And we've been involved in this struggle for years and years and years. And see, me and Viola's mother been praying for Viola. Viola's saved and don't know it. But there's a song that we sing in my church that says, I've been running for Jesus a long time, but I'm not tired yet. And in the civil rights movement, we kind of rephrased that and said, we've been running for freedom a long time, and we're not tired yet. And Viola and I have been running for freedom a long time. We're not tired yet. We're not slowing down. We're not backing up. And if you're going to be in this race, one of the best allies, partners, friends, colleagues I could possibly have is Viola Plummer. Viola Plummer.
Brothers and sisters, Brother Minister Hafiz, all of the brothers and sisters that I've known over the years, Brother Akbar Muhammad, Brother Bob Law, all of you, Brother Derek, who is our student teacher, okay, who makes sure that we in the December 12th movement are up to date on what's happening. I am just so honored to be among you. You have no idea. I can't say anything other than what Brother Bob said or Minister Akbar Muhammad, and that is that we are united. Am I a Muslim? I don't know. Maybe it is in my DNA. But what I am is a committed, unapologetic black woman who's gonna fight for the liberation of our people all my life. And I thank you, I thank you, I thank you.
Let's hear Bob Law and Viola Plummer. Thank you very much. Thank you. Brothers and sisters, I want to close this out because we do have the parade today and we have a participation in it. Brother Joseph, could you come up? I call him Yusuf. Come up for a minute. I just want to say this to him. Brother Joseph, because it's far spent, I wanted to hear from him, but the time is on us. It's 1 o'clock already. I didn't even have a question and answer period. You know, I never come to New York without opening the floor. But perhaps, inshallah, I'm scheduled to be here next week with Bob Law, and then I have to go to Africa, but maybe I can leave Sunday night for Africa and come back, Brother Hafiz, and let you lecture and I'll answer questions, okay? But let me just say this. I went to Haiti. It's one of the greatest trips I made. Because a brother asked me, how come all of your traveling you never went to Haiti? Because of the media made it appear that it was just somewhere I didn't want to go. But the history of Haiti was buried. And when we got there, we had a debate whether to go to the Citadel in Cape Haitien. Did I say it right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I told the brothers, I said, brother, I'm not coming here. It's like going to Ghana and not going to the slave dungeons. But if you know that Dessalines, right?
Yes, sir.
Built this.
Henry Christophe.
Henry Christophe.
Yes, sir.
And if you know the history of him, coming from Grenada, coming to America, helping the Americans in their struggle. I mean, the history of Haiti is rich, and white folks hid that history from us.
Yes, sir.
Those struggle. And what was so profound is that the early strugglers, Bookman and Macadel, which is his middle name,
yes, sir,
they were Muslims. Bookman got his name because he always carried a book, and the people say he carried this book and he reads it upside down because he was reading the Quran. You know, you read it from the right to the left instead of left to right.
Yes,
and then Macandel was a Muslim, and there were many early Muslims in that struggle in Haiti. Toussaint L'Ouverture. Toussaint is the opening, right? Which one is the opening?
L'Ouverture.
L'Ouverture is the opening. Toussaint is the two saints, right?
Yes, sir.
All saints. Yes, and but these men struggled, and when they gave me this history, and then when we went to the Citadel, in the name of Allah, it reminded me of the slave dungeons. And when I looked at those cannons in mint condition, and Brother James, you would really appreciate this. So if you go to Haiti, now we're going to take another delegation, And if Allah blesses me after this trip to Africa and we can advertise it, make the trip to help the Haitian people. We walk by buildings, all praise is due to Allah. We walk by buildings where bodies are still buried.
Yes, sir.
We talked to two brothers, it was 4 of them, digging, and they said the family, there's 2 members of the family in here, and they paid us to dig to get the bodies so they can give them proper burial. The tents that are there. But the spirit of the Haitian people and their ability is unbelievable. And I was listening to the music and the rhythm of the people. And I showed him when we were walking, we were in Cape Haitian, I said, look at the women carrying things on their head. Yes, I said, the Africans didn't come here and teach them that.
That's right.
And the women were doing it just like their whole rhythm. And they have retained their African identity and the African personality. They are proud people. And the way that they have bounced back from this tremendous earthquake, but we could be of more of assistance if we get involved.
Yes, sir.
And so I want to thank my brother. He is a lawyer and a politician, and it was an honor to have him with me. He helped me with my Creole down there. He translated when I spoke at the mosque. There's 4 Muslim communities that we visited. Most of them were started by members of the Nation of Islam who abandoned their posts and ran back to the safety of America and left the brothers there. So we got to get back involved. In Haiti, 9 million people. 3rd largest population in the Caribbean, and it may be larger than the Dominican Republic. Haiti once ruled the Dominican Republic, and there's always this jealousy about Haiti and the Dominican Republic, but it is a great opportunity if we get involved. So I want to thank you, Brother
Thank
Joseph.
you, sir.
I delivered your speech for you, okay?
You did very well,
but let me say, the other night in Brooklyn, 2 weeks ago in Brooklyn,
yes, sir.
We went to the Haitian program with a brother named Napoleon.
Yes, sir.
And he spoke. First time I heard him speak, and if you get a copy of that speech, you should hear him speak, okay? I want to get it to the minister because we don't want to pull you away from your law profession, but we need that good teacher. May Allah bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Praise is due to Allah. So, brothers and sisters, let me finish with one thing I want to mention. The movie that I saw the other night, Muzak. How many saw it? Anybody see it in the audience? Muslim. And Brother Howard saw it with me, but I hope that we can get it for the Muslim community. The brothers are going to take it to Chicago. It was at the Urban Film Festival. And the brother who wrote it, his mother and father grew up in the nation and so forth, but it's an excellent film. And Danny Glover is in it and a few other people. But I want to mention Brother Hafiz, if they do have a showing, make sure that the Muslims get a chance, and we'll pack an auditorium to see it, but it's an enlightening film. Now I want to close out. I'm going to have Brother Hafiz to come up. How many are here for the first time, never been out? And, okay. I'm going to, brothers who are here, never been out, I want to say that if you want to become a part of this, what you learn in the Nation of Islam, whether you leave us, stay with us, it'll carry you through your life if you use it in your life. It'll carry you and help you. So when I finish, Brother Hafiz is going to ask you, send you to the secretary, to see the secretary. There is a DVD, CD, we don't have many copies. I did an excellent interview with Malcolm's daughter. And I told Ilyasha, who Malcolm named after the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I remember the last daughter that Malcolm announced to my daughters. I'll never forget the Sunday when Sauda was born. She was born April the 1st, 1963, and Malcolm said, Brother Larry has another girl. And he had 6 girls. I ended up with 9 girls. But when Ilyasha was born, I remember him announcing her. And now she's a grown woman. She wrote the book Growing Up X. I had her in St. Louis, and I came to New York last week and met with her. And I said, Ilyasha, it's been a 45-year battle, a struggle. And it's time for us to heal that wound. And I pray Allah we can do it. This weekend, and she's speaking in North Carolina. She's a beautiful sister. And after I work with her, I'd like to invite her to the mosque. I took her to a mosque in St. Louis, Imam Muhammad's group and we got together and we received her. She autographed books. And just listening to her speak, I took her to a church group, 500 people she spoke before. She did an excellent job. And so it represents something of healing a wound. And in her book, Growing Up X, how many have read the book or seen the book? Excellent book. When she describes Ramadan and so forth, And we're trying to get her, she just did a child's book on Malcolm's life, it'll be out next year. And so I hope that we can get her to come and visit the Muslim community in the Nation of Islam. But we only have 7 or 10 of the interviews I had because we ran out of tapes, but they'll be on sale on your way out. It's an interview that I conducted with her in St. Louis 2 weeks ago. And when we get more tapes, I'll have Brother Hafiz to make them available. Thank you. I thank you for being patient. I know I'm long-winded, but inshallah, if I can change my flight to Sunday night next week, I'll come back and see Brother Hafiz, with his permission, of course. Thank you very much. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Don't forget to get the sign.
Praise be to Allah. Let's give Brother Akbar another well-deserved round of applause for his presentation. I want to say to my dear brother and friend Bob Law and my dear sister and mother Viola Plummer, we are a major part of that 43,000 signatures. Because when y'all came to us first, maybe Bob didn't know that. I was waiting to hear that, but maybe you didn't send him that memo. But I'm going to give him a personal email that Mosque number 7 jumped right on top of it, sir. And so put a lot of signatures out there for you, so we're honored to be a part of that. No, I'm not. I'm going to take a jab at him. I mean, that's what we do. We Million Man March buddies, so ain't no big deal. And yes, we are sanctified Muslims, but Bob is a Muslim sanctified preacher. And if we didn't send that note, Bob would have had us here another hour and 30 minutes. You know what I mean? I just wanted him to bring you up, Sister V, so that we could move things along. But we love you all. And we do have this African American Day Parade today. Brothers of the FOI, I want you all to be ready we're going to walk together along with our counterpart, our sisters of the MGT and GCC, and we want a strong showing in this African American Day Parade, and all of you are welcome to walk with us. You are members of this mosque, so we want you to make yourself present and accounted for. As we get ready to close out our program, we want to recognize some brothers and sisters who are here with us today. But before we do that, thank you so much. I want to ask those brothers and sisters who heard this message today, and you have not yet come forward to say that you heard what you heard is the truth, it is good for you, and you want to come and learn more about it. Brother Akbar spoke very resoundingly this morning. We heard the representation about the Freedom Party, of which we are that party and we back that. And we want to remind us, in the spirit of the Million Man March, the Million Family March, and the Millions More movement, it is the directive of Minister Farrakhan to set up an independent party. So this is in line with what we should be doing. So we thank Bob, we thank Sister Viola for what they are doing, and we back our brother Councilman Barron in where he's moving, and everyone that is on that ballot. That is in our best interest. Is that right? Yes, sir. All right. So now the brothers and sisters today who are visiting with us for the first time, can you please stand for us today, please? Let us recognize you as our guests. Thank you so much. Very good. Praise be to Allah. Let me just ask you a simple question. If you believe what you heard taught here today to be the truth and good for you as a person, and you would like to come back and learn more about this truth, then I want you to take the pleasure of coming down and shaking the hand of our beloved student minister, Akbar Muhammad. If you would like to do that, please come on down and give us that pleasure of doing so. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. Come on down and shake our beloved brother's hand. Thank you. All right. Help direct those brothers. You see it going down. Brother Akbar, we have our sisters over here. Let's thank all of our wonderful guests this morning. Praise be to Allah. Thank you. I guess won't you just be seated right where you're standing at? Won't you have a seat right there? Thank you so much. You're going to receive a Believer's Pledge card, and we want you to fill out that information. We want you to give us your email address on there as well. There's not a space for it, but there's room for it at the top so that we may be in contact with you and also make you a part of the nation's program, that you may also be contacted by our national headquarters. We're very, very thankful to every one of you this morning. Our brothers and sisters, with very minimal movement, let us move through the close of this part of our program. The brothers that are visiting from Los Angeles, California, please stand up, that are visiting with us from mosque number 27 or the West Coast area. Praise be to Allah. Let's give our FOI a well-deserved round of applause. These are all of our young representatives and helpers of our nation. We thank you so much for being in another room in our Father's mansion. Praise be to Allah. Brother Johnny, is he still in the room? Brother Johnny from Chicago? He stepped out. There he is. Let's give Brother Johnny Muhammad a well-deserved round of applause. Praise be to Allah. Visiting from our national headquarters. There's a sister here sitting in the front row. Yes, Sister Dion. Thank you so much for coming out. I want to tell you something about her, Sister Dion Gordon. She comes by the way of Jamaica, the island of Jamaica, and her family. I met her at the funeral for Jam Master Jay that I spoke at. Your good friend, or your best friend, Sister Terry, and we've had a relationship ever since then, because our words on that day found resonance for Sister Terry and the loss of her husband, whom I knew, and meeting that family. And we were connected ever since that time. We spoke, as a matter of fact, at Allen AME Church. Pastor Donnie McClurkin was there as well. From that day forward, there's been a connection. But I want to thank Brother Don Enoch. We were in Chicago at a program with our minister, and he informed me that your brother had passed. Her brother is Maurice Gordon. He was the U.S. Customs agent at JFK several months back that was murdered protecting his niece or cousin, his family member. Very untimely death. This is a very lovable brother. He was a big brother, but his heart was bigger than him. Just a very lovable man, a father figure. Big Mo. Big Mo, they called him. And we were asked to speak at his wake. And we came, and we touched hearts again in the way the minister has guided us to do so. But on the day of preparing for the wake, something happened in her family that if it's not happened in yours, you don't know how you will respond until trial hits you. Her beloved father, who was saying to his daughter Dion that I can't go on without my son. I just love him and I miss him. And on that afternoon, before coming to the wake, her father returned to Allah and succumbed on that day due to the grief of the loss of his beloved son. So not only did she come to the wake and her mother and her family for their brother, for her brother and her mother's son, but her father also passed on that very day. And so, but the family has stood strong by God's grace. And so we want to remind you, Dion, I know you're here today with your friend Terry. Where's Terry at? Angie. Oh, okay, Angie. Terry is Jam Master. Angie, how are you doing? It's good to see you, Angie, again. We know that it's difficult, but I'm going to say to you what we said on that time. No soul dies except by the permission of its creator. The term is fixed, and whomever so desires the life of this world, he gives it to them, and the life of the hereafter. When Allah says that it is fixed, brothers and sisters, it doesn't mean that you're going to just die at a specific moment. If that's the case, we don't need to practice how to eat to live. But what it does mean is that there's a moment where Allah, God, will take the soul back that he gave. Your brother gave his life in heroism for his own family. Your father died because of what might have already been pre-existing, but the grief of his son, his spirit could no longer be contained in his body. And when it reaches that point, brothers and sisters, it is time to return to Allah. But before you met your father, you knew God. And so you can be here even after him. And before you knew your brother, you knew God. And you can be here after him. So the Lord is not finished with you or your mother or your family. So you may cry, but don't cry too long, because there's a great work for you to do in honor of Maurice, Big Mo, and in honor of your father, Mr. Gordon, that must continue through you and your mother. Let's give her a well-deserved round of applause and just thank Allah for each and every one of them. All right. I want to recognize a brother that's visiting with us today. Very good to have him here. He travels back and forth to Jamaica so much. He always leaves me behind. I don't think that I should even mention that he's here today, but I have to, because he's a student representative of our beloved minister. No, I love him immensely. You know, when you labor on the West Coast, as the brothers come from the West Coast under student minister Tony, our West Coast regional representative, but it's something being in the city of San Diego. I know something about it, Brother Akbar. You know, a special city. The minister told me some things about it. So to recognize this brother who once used to be up in Buffalo, New York, in Mosque 23, but he's now the student minister of Muhammad Mosque No. 8 in San Diego, California, student minister Hugh Muhammad. Let's give our dear brother a well-deserved round of applause. Praise be to Allah. So good to have you here. And God willing, we have to have you back on a Sunday morning and come back and deliver the word. All right? And hopefully we go to California when you come here. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to happen. Now, you're supposed to leave me here now. I ain't got nothing to do now. That's what Brother Akbar does every time. You know what I mean? It's been a wonderful day. Now, Brother Akbar, we got to have you back as always. We got to see how it works next week, because the apostle may come out based upon his words. So we'll find out. If it's not that, if it's the following week, then Brother Akbar, surely you're welcome to come back at any time to be here at Mosque No. 7. Now, today we're going to, yes, our dear brother George Caldoon, please stand up. Where's he at? Where's Brother Caldoon? He stepped out?
His son is here.
Where's his son, Fanan? Fanan. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother. Good to see you, brother. It's wonderful to see you. Brother George Caldoon is our wonderful brother, a part of our Muslim community. He's one of the leaders at the Harlem Children's Zone, where we've done a lot of work together with them and they with us. And his daughter got married yesterday, and so it's an honor to be able to have him here. And praise be to Allah. It's good to see you, beloved, as well. All right. Now, sisters, please, we want you to remain back, as well as the FOI, so that we can appropriately organize our participation in the African American Day Parade. Of all of the organizations, of our Masonic brothers, of our church family, our activist community, they're looking for the Muslims. They're looking for the FOI and the MGT. They're looking for us in these uniforms and the suit and the bow tie. They're looking for the righteous brothers and sisters to come up and pull up the rear and take care of the business, and they know that all hope is still here. A beacon light is still here in Harlem. So we want to organize with that. It doesn't take long for us to take the walk together. Hopefully you got on your nice walking shoes. If not, you're going to walk in whatever shoes you got, because we're getting out there today together. You already knew about this, so let's be prepared, okay? So FOI and MGT, let's stay behind, as our guests will be properly dismissed so that we may organize. Before you leave today, I want to thank, is Sister Fajr in the room? Sister Fajr, just stand up. This is our coordinator of the Ministry of Agriculture here at Mosque No. 7. And every other Saturday, as it was yesterday. She has our farmers market of fresh, organic fruits and vegetables from the black farmers of Vermont and elsewhere that services our Muslim community, our Christian community, even the whites that come in this community who come because of the great work that her and her staff is doing. So today you can make your order for the fresh apples, beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, eggplant, garlic, onions, romaine lettuce, string beans, sweet peppers. Do you recognize any of these food products? These are the things that we're supposed to eat. The things in the, the outer side of the supermarket. Not too much in the middle. The stuff in the middle is the stuff not good for us. These are the things that are good. Organically grown, free of pesticide, fresh, and you can tell the difference when you have them. We have a farmer's market in Brooklyn, on Nostrand and Jefferson, with Sister's Place. So if you're over in Brooklyn, go over to Sister's Place to their farmer's market of their fresh fruits and vegetables. So you can make an order today, $25 donation. Man, that bag is so big, it's bigger than you.
Right.
And I mean, you just got enough food for 2 weeks.
Right.
If you eat 1 meal a day. Now, if you eat 4 meals a day, I don't know how long you're going to have it. All praise be to Allah. Yes, Sister Faja. Oh, we have the navy beans from our own farms in Georgia as well. Praise be to Allah. You got to put in an order for that today, and you'll be delivered next Saturday right in front of the mosque. Let's give Sister Faja Muhammad a well-deserved round of applause. Praise be to Allah. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, we went straight into the announcements. I didn't forget it, but you know what? It's good when money's not the first thing on your mind. All right, nobody move now, because now it's on my mind. Now it's on my mind. Don't move, brother. Shabak, I see you, brother. Watch it, brother. Let's bring down the Ministry of Finance right now. Before there's 10 little Indians and then there's none. Let's bring it down right now. Normally that's the first thing that's done at the end of the meeting, but we got right to welcoming you. But now, let's go inside, and so that we may receive a blessing. You cannot attain to righteousness unless you spend out of what God has given you. It is easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, because he won't give nothing up but the camel will. So give something up today, whatever that may be, 20, 10, 100, 50, that is your choice. But receive your blessing right now from Almighty Allah. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is the knowledge passing. Once you get it on down, brother, bring it back for the faith passing real quick. That's right. Faith, that's right. Faith goes where knowledge cannot go. So we want to see if there's something else where you can reach and get more blessings for yourself. If you don't have anything to give, have a smile on your face. There you go. If you desire to change, if you donate a $50 bill and you want change, you know what we say here at Mosque number 7. Just accept things the way they are. And we will kindly give you your change. But if you can accept it the way you are, that'll be a lot better. You got to have an enjoyable experience. Everybody all right this morning? Praise be to Allah. You got to be happy when you come to the mosque. You have to be happy. Enough gloom going around to last a lifetime. We don't need to come in here and be gloomful. Is that right? That's right. All right. Even if we got to give you a fire and brimstone speech, at the end of the day, we got to give you a way out. The sun is still shining. Still bright outside. Praise be to Allah. All right, Bob. Watch it now. All right, family. I didn't hear a lot of jingle there. That's pretty good. Praise be to Allah. Yes. When we used to have those toll bridge tokens that were worth a certain amount of money, I used to get those. Now there's no more tokens now. So don't nobody drop the Easy Pass in there, because we can't, transfer that. Can't get anything for Easy Pass today. Let's bring the receptacles back down. If you have a faith passing giving that you would like to give right now, we appreciate it. I want to thank the Muslim followers who've already given to their national charities, their local charities, and their ministries. You can pass the receptacle again. You don't have anything, I'll just pass it on down with a smile. God bless you. There you go. All right. I want to thank everyone else who are able to donate today. Now, brothers and sisters, while we're doing this at this moment, I just want you to know with Student Minister Akbar Muhammad is a wealth of history. And you know, Brother Akbar, you travel so much, but we have to get you here on a weekend where you just have 4, 5 hours. And I mean, you lay it out, because this brother gave me, as a young Muslim, nearly 30 years ago, 29 years ago, my first history lesson in the nation called The History of the Nation of Islam. And he gave a timeline. But this man's expansive history today, when he started talking about our president and the DNA structure of his father, that of his mother that's in him, but the part of the father, the dominant part. I mean, brother and sister, now you know many of us didn't know that. But we learned it today, is that right? Let's give Brother Akbar another well-deserved round of applause for that wonderful lesson today, brother. Wonderful, wonderful. Praise be to Allah. Now the CDs of his interview with Ilyas Shabazz, please get that today. Please get it today, please. That should just be gone like that, okay? Now, brothers and sisters, this message from our beloved minister, our spiritual teacher, our God, put on the new man. Every one of you must have. This is not like, you know, some ministry advertisements just for you to get it and we get an exchange. No, 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 no. The message on here, priceless, of where the minister is today on putting the new man on. Here's an excerpt, quote unquote. God is not interested in buildings more than he is in human beings. He's not interested in what you have, he's interested in you. And Master Farrakhan Muhammad didn't travel 9,000 miles for us to raise money or build mosques. He traveled because he wanted to make a new human being who would know what to do with the exchange of money and know what to do with the mosque, okay? Put on the new man. Secret Relationships Between Blacks and Jews. Book 1 is available, but this is book 2 that the minister spoke of June 26th of this year. How Jews Gain Control of the Black American Economy. Open up our eyes and see what's really going on. This is not a myth. This is not paranoia. This is not putting something over on some other ethnic group. But what if you learn that something has been put over on us by another ethnic group? Will you be as upset? Then this is a must read and study. And that's why the minister told everyone when it came out, don't say nothing to me about the book because of the title. Read it, then talk to me. Have you heard any of the talking heads talk yet? He sent it to all of them. They're avoiding it right now. They're trying to plan. But this is the man that's born to take on the synagogue of Satan. You're looking at the archangel, Michael, in your midst when you see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's got to expose them. This ain't about all Jews. It didn't say all Jews. It don't say every Jew. It says how Jews. So which group has done that? It is the synagogue of Satan. They must be exposed and they must be destroyed for you and I to go free. All right? Praise be to Allah. I know I'm a frustrated preacher. I ain't preached in 6 weeks, but it's all right. We ain't gonna give you nothing else right now. We just promoting our information. Been 6 weeks. I'm frustrated. Yes, I am. Thank you, Jesus. And then Brother Akbar talking about coming back next week. You saw he said he'll let me preach and he'll answer questions because you know I'm frustrated. All right. Brothers and sisters, next Sunday is a beautiful program entitled Sagging that's being put on by our Brother Philip. I didn't forget you, brother. I didn't forget it. These flyers are on the table out front because we need to attack fashion and trends that are just making us look like fools before the rest of the world. So we thank Brother Philip for putting on this program that's going to support. He's trying to develop a television network. Now you think of that now. You think of what student minister Sister Ava said last Sunday. She said that we are now buying homes with mortgages rather than land and using our skill to build homes for ourselves as we used to. We say we built the pyramids. We say we're the builders of Africa and the world. Well, we got to get back to that. Is that right? I don't care if you got to tear down where you're at and build something new just to know that you have the skill. Now don't go on and tell you tear down your home now, said Brother Hafiz. Said tear it down. You sure enough being divorce court with your wife. But you understand the principle, is that right? So that program, those flyers are out front. And on next Sunday at 3 p.m. at the National Black Theater at 2033 Fifth Avenue will be a wonderful program with wonderful speakers and panels that will be there and presentations. We thank you. We want to thank Sister Queen Asia Muhammad, her father, Brother Walter 5X, for that wonderful presentation given to Brother Akbar this morning. We pray that he enjoyed it and her representation. All right? With that said, brothers and sisters, once again, FOI and MGT and GCC, we need you to remain behind so that we can organize for this parade, because we need to get down there. It starts at 2 o'clock. We already got it set up for us to get on the trains, do what has to be done. You know, we the Muslims, you know, when we come, we take over. That's just what we do. We love you, but we're gonna help you out. But if you do so, we definitely gonna take over. Our job is to establish a beachhead behind enemy lines and do what? Proceed to take control. That's just our divine instructions. We don't mean no harm to nobody, but somebody got to take command. Is that right? Praise be to Allah. So let's take command of making prayers and thanking the Almighty Creator for a wonderful day. Let's stand for closing prayer at this time. Thank you so much. Please pray in a manner that you see us standing, or a manner that is comfortable unto you. Say, I seek refuge in Allah against the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, sole Master of this day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve. Thee alone do we beseech for thine aid and thine help. O Allah, guide us along the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray at the hearing of thy teachings. O Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, and I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness, and I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness, and I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice not me with that which is lawful, and keep me away from all of that which is prohibited, and with thy grace make me free from all want of that which is besides me. Amen. Amen. Brothers and sisters, at the end of every meeting, we say these words. There were 6 words that Master Farrakhan Muhammad gave to the Honorable Muhammad that surmised Islam. Accept your own and be yourself. In the scriptures of the Bible, there's another saying, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And in the tradition of Islam, from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said these words, and we fulfilled them under the Honorable Muhammad. A Muslim is not a true believer unless you want for your brother and sister that which you want for yourself. And since we don't practice intellectual cowardice, we add it to it, even if you don't have it for your own self. Because many of us only want for others as long as we have, because misery loves company. You should want for your fellow brother and sister if it's the most remote thing from you. And when the elevator comes to your floor, you won't have to ask whether it's for you. Because you want it for someone else, that what you wanted, and you know God's blessing now has arrived. Thank you as we greet you in peace. We'll see you on Wednesday night, and there's always free dinners here on Wednesday night for all of us that attend, and the youth that have been coming out to the mosque. I want to thank Brother Joe and Sister Arnice and all of the staff of that ministry that makes that happen. We'll see you on Wednesday night, inshallah. I'm sorry? We have dinners upstairs today, and we have dinners upstairs today, bean soup and other dinners that have been prepared. We didn't get that in the announcement, so I'm glad y'all told us. Upstairs on our 2nd level is our wonderful Muslim cuisine. Thank you as we greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters at YMBT, we need us to organize for the parade, so please come down in the seats. Thank you so much. Brother Farrakhan and Brother Council, if you're still there, I want to see you before you leave. And the brothers from California, come down front. Brother Hassan, brothers from California. Here, you're still in the room.
Brother Youssef, why don't you come up here, okay? This is a Haitian attorney who is also an FOI. And have a seat right over there. Thank you. He went to Haiti with me. So I'm going to take the scenic route. My subject is the burning of Qurans and the attack on Islam. And I'm going to try to make it the scenic route that I take, because there's some things that I have to cover. And I want to start this morning. You know, most of the people in New York know that I love jazz. There was a brother named Maceo Haziz who played the piano. Anybody remember Maceo? Could you raise your hand? Okay, and what you have to do is share something about him with the brothers and sisters in the mosque and the young brothers who don't know him. Maceo came from Cleveland. He was a piano player. He accepted Islam. And his love of jazz was always there. So some kind of way, you know, people who love the music, we kind of vibe together. You know, I was walking somewhere one day and I had my linen hat on. And the brother said, "Do you like music?" I said, "Yeah, I like music." He said, "You look like you like music." And how many remember Donald 15, who used to play the saxophone? Anybody in the audience? Thank you. Okay, he's in California. Usman, you remember him. When Donald first came and sat in the mosque on 116th Street, and I was an assistant minister under Malcolm, Donald said that you stand like a trumpet player. And I don't play an instrument, but I love music. So Viola, I'm telling this story for you right now. Because Viola loves music. And the term, we got a TV show in Viola, I got this from you. We're going to call it Straight Ahead. It's a one-on-one conversation about what's happening in the world. And when I suggested that name, Straight Ahead, they accepted it immediately. But let me just say this to you. I grew up in the South Bronx, first in Brooklyn. When I came at 2 years old from Virginia, my mother moved to Brooklyn, Bedford Avenue first, then we got an apartment on Tompkins. And then my aunt got a house out in Queens where there's grass at. And we all of us moved out to Jamaica. Those who know Jamaica, I lived on Glassboro Avenue and went to Colonial Park, and when I worked in Central Harlem from 110th to 132nd Street and pointing out to the restaurant 22 West, we used to call it, right? And as he was saying, he said, "Akbar, you need to put this on film." And I was telling him what happened here and there. But when you grow up with a thing, you don't think about it. But when you get to my age, you begin to think about it and reflect. But it's a powerful city. It's made an impact on the black struggle throughout the world, no doubt about it. From the Renaissance period, the early migrants who came to New York. Minister Farrakhan mentioned at the press conference about the graves. They're talking about Lower Manhattan, the graves of the black slaves that built Wall Street and all of that. So it's a city that is rich. And it's a city, I know when you reach a certain point, you want to move out to where there's a little grass and a little more trees, but there's a magnet that draws you back to this city. I was riding through Brooklyn the other night, and I was just looking at the energy of Brooklyn. It reminded me, is Brother Youssef, Brother Joseph here from Haiti? Is he here? Well, he'll be coming shortly. I went to Haiti recently. My 140th country, Bob, was Haiti. And the brother said to me, he said, "My subject is burning the Quran, but I'm going to take the scenic route to get there, okay? So bear with me, and I know we have to leave early. But this Quran issue has become a very divisive factor in the nation and the world. I got a letter from Brother Gaddafi's son, Saif, last week right before I did a TV show for overseas. And he was pleading with this pastor in Florida whose elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. You know he's a nut. But the only reason that he got public profile is because of the press. And the press had a political motive that most of us may have looked over. We were all in the hype of this Christian burning Holy Qurans, but the press profiled him. It would have been like somebody passing gas in a storm, and nobody would hear him.
Their wheel blew out. There were 14 or 15, and 7 of them have died, including the wonderful pastor and his beloved wife. See, so we can't take for granted life. We must be precious, but we have to know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Master Farad Muhammad would destroy nations for us to be free. Last night, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke in Rockville, Illinois. You have to hear that message because he's making the case for separation. And if you don't believe it, you keep watching how God tears up the country. Everything is going to be separated anyway, so we might as well get ready to go for ourselves. Let's receive a message today on the burning of the Quran and the attack on Islam by our student minister, Abdul Akbar Muhammad. Let's give him a New York well-deserved round of applause. This is his home. Assalamu alaikum.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, I want to thank Allah for blessing me to be here this morning. It's still morning. We have a few minutes. And as always, I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for an opportunity that he gives us to help him in the work that I believe God has placed on his shoulder. I want to thank Brother Minister Hafiz and thank the staff for allowing me to come and speak here today. And it's always special when I come to New York. It's my home. And as I tell people, Brother asked me the other night, sitting next to me, he said, "Brother, do you miss New York?" I said, "When you leave New York, everything else is camping out." And but it's a city that's culturally rich. It's a city that has a history of struggle. And, you know, as a brother was driving me, where's Brother Howard? Is Brother Howard here? Brother Howard, the brother from Jersey who was driving me, and I was pointing out, you know, where I lived in the South Bronx and how I walked across the 145th Street Bridge. Nobody would know it. But they made him the center of focus because there was a political objective. So let me take this scenic route because I'm back in New York and I'm home and I see some of my friends. I want to thank Bob Law, who is with me. Bob, we have to hear about this Freedom Party for a few minutes. And Viola, where's Viola at? She's here. And these are my friends, you know, I love them. And what I love about them is that they've been consistent in the struggle. And let me take all praise is due to Allah. Because, you know, I was with the minister and we were talking about people who become battle fatigued. And dealing with black folks, they can wear you out. Not only will they turn your hair crazy, they'll send you to the crazy house. You'll need some Thorazine and everything else, just dealing with Negroes. And but there are people who hang in there, and they stay, and they're consistent. And you know, and bear with me for a minute. I'm going to keep in mind I'm talking about the burning of Qurans today, but I just want to share this with you. Because at my age, you don't know when Allah will take you. I was at the funeral of Reverend Lucius Walker the other day, and Allah took him at 80 years old. But he was a progressive Christian minister. He didn't limit it to the church that he was in. He took it to the streets. And then he made it so that the church had an international thrust. He kept the people in his congregation. When he started in Milwaukee, one of the first black ministers over an all-white congregation. And so what he did with the white folks in that congregation, he took them to the hood. He took them to the ghetto. And he said, if you're going to be in a church, you got to get out in the street and work and show what a church can do. That's how he started. So I thank God for him. One of the things that will live in the memory of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren is his caravans to Cuba and those students. They were all in the audience. They stood up. These were students from East Harlem, black students who went to the medical school provided by Fidel Castro. So you don't know how long you'll be, so bear with me while I talk about this.
Thank you, brother. That's just a part of our Ministry of Arts and Culture, Sister Viola, and the product of her work of her father. And I thank our Ministry of Education and our Saturday school, but the innate ability that Sister Queen Asia Muhammad has at 5 years of age. Praise be to Allah. Well, brothers and sisters, let us move forward with the word of God this morning. We want to present the one, the only. There's only one Brother Akbar. Might be a lot named with that name in the world, but there's only one that we know, Abdul Akbar Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. And I want to say this, Brother Akbar, when you spoke on the tsunami prayer line in the time of the Laylat al-Qadar, the Night of Power, the last time when the minister came on and you gave the history of what the Minister Farrakhan did in New York City with the ministry class and where all of those individuals are today in the world. You shared something I knew of the class, but that particular history just re-enlightened us on the depth and the breadth of the man, Minister Farrakhan, who walked in this city, labored in this city, and now today sits in the seat of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he's leading us to freedom, justice, and equality. And we can't keep staying amongst our enemy. I'm going to say this to you and bring Brother Akbar. Don't forget what happened on Thursday. They used to say 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. Well, 15 minutes and the tornado was on in New York City. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has warned us over and over again that Allah is going to keep sending one exclamation point after another. 15 minutes between Park Slope, Brooklyn, Forest Hills, Queens, and Staten Island. A bow wind struck through, 15 minutes and destruction. Trees that have been there 90, 100 years pulled up from their roots, concrete and steel along with it. We pray for the woman who lost her life, but the minister says disaster and destruction does not know persons. It could happen to any one of us. We have to pray for that family, that Christian family in the Bronx that were on their way last night into Orange County, and